Tech Made Easy. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And today we're going to be reviewing remote desktop. If you don't know what remote desktop is, what it does, let's say in your house you have a computer in the bedroom, or maybe you have an office in your house, and then you have a laptop. Maybe you're in the living room and you want to access something really quick on your personal, on one of the computers in your house. With remote desktop, you could remotely from your laptop access one of those computers. Now, a lot of what remote desktop is used for, and when I talk about remote desktop, we're only going to be talking about a local remote desktop. So something that's in your house or in your or if you're in your office and you have to remote into something else, another computer in your office, it is not. It's not where if you leave your home, you can access your desktop from work or from another place. So this is just local in your own home. But one of the other reasons, a main reason that people use remote desktop is to access a Windows server. And a few weeks ago, I went ahead and we put this server together. It's for a 20 terabyte server for $530. And so I showed how to remote desktop, because a lot of times a server, you're going to stick it in a corner, or maybe you're going to stick it closer to your router and your switch. But a lot of times the server is not located in the same room that you work in. And especially if it's a home server. And so remote desktop allows you to remote into this server. You don't have a monitor on it. You just remote into it from whatever computer you're using. So that's what a remote desktop is really used for most of the time. But you can also access other computers in your house too, not just the server. So now, originally I showed Windows 10. Now Windows 10 Pro comes with remote desktop software. It's actually really good, but it only comes with Windows 10 Pro. So if you have home, you can't use that. So I'm going to be showing two different remote desktops. One that comes with Windows 10 Pro, and then another one that you can use on any device, whether it's Linux, Mac, Windows, Raspberry Pi. You can access any of those. So if I have a Windows machine, I can access a Mac, or if I have a Windows machine, I can access a Linux, or if I have a Linux machine, I can access Windows. It's really a great software. There's lots of third-party remote desktops out there. This is just one that I use. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's very easy to use. They're very easy to set up. So let's go ahead and get started. I almost forgot to mention, I do have a video coming up that's going to show you how to access your home PC if you're out and about, you have your laptop and you need to access your home PC for some reason. Or if you're at home and you need to access your business computer at your business office, or vice versa. So I do have that video coming up. So make sure you hit the bell notification, subscribe, and hit the like button so that you can get upcoming videos that I have coming up. Okay, so I'm on the desktop of the server that I created that I mentioned at the beginning, but this could be your desktop, it could be your laptop, whatever computer you want to try and access from another computer or from your laptop. Or maybe you've set up a Microsoft server, and this is just, when I talk about the server here, it's actually running Microsoft Windows 10, but I just set it up as a server. It's not any special software, it's just Microsoft 10 Pro. And so what we're going to do here, though, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into the settings first. We're going to go into the system. And then when we're in the system here, we're going to go into the About screen. Now, what you're going to do here is Windows always names your computer. It'll be right up here in device name, and it'll say desktop dash, and then it'll have some numbers, some letters. You may already know that, you may not, but you're going to want to change that to something more meaningful. I've already done this here. Since this is a HP Z420, I just named it Z420 server. But you can name it anything you want. If it's your desktop, then you might want to personalize that. You put that in here, hit next. It's going to ask you to restart your computer. After you rename it, you're going to have to restart it. Go ahead and restart it. The other thing that we're going to want to do here while we're in the system settings is we're going to go to remote desktop. Now I already have it turned on, but more than likely yours is going to be turned off. So just click it on. You won't have to do anything else but turn it on. And you'll see here my PC name right here is that Z420 server. And so the reason why we're naming this is, let's go back out and let's go over to our network here. And let's go to our Ethernet, and we're going to go to adapter settings. Okay, once we're in here to adapter settings, there's multiple ways to find out what your Ethernet setting is, but we're just going to click on details here, and this is going to give us our IP address. And this is our IP address for the computer right now. And so it's this 192.168.1.141. If you don't name your computer, or if you don't know what the name is, then you're going to have to use your IP address. And the reason why I don't suggest using your IP address is because that IP address can change when you reboot your computer, unless you set up a static IP. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it at this point. That's why you're going to name your computer. But a static IP is just something you set up where your computer always has that same IP. But this way, if you name your computer, it's just always going to, the Windows is going to see it as that name, and it won't matter what your IP address is. And so that'll make more sense here when we connect to this computer. So now what we're going to do, if you've set up a computer and when you first set it up, you did not set it up with a password, but if you haven't set up your password and you want to use the username that you've set up for your desktop, then you can go into sign up options, you can go into password, and now you can add a password here. The other option is you can set up a username that you want to access this computer. In other words, you'll see here that I've set up this TechMadeEasy username. So the way that you do that, and you might want to do this too, where you have a separate username to access your desktop other than your own username and password that you set up for your computer. It's up to you, but you just go here, you're going to add somebody to this PC. You're not going to sign anything in, just as and again, you're going to do this without a user account. And then what you're going to do here, like I said, in this one, I just did a TechMadeEasy username. You're going to go ahead and put your password in here, whatever that's going to be. Unfortunately, you're going to have to answer these questions. You can't bypass these. Just put in whatever you want. I don't really care what these are because I'm not going to save this. I've already created that user. And so we'll put this in here. Then you just hit next and you've saved that user. So what's going to happen here though is that user is going to show up here that you created, but it's not going to have administrative rights. So you're going to click on that user. You're going to say change account type. What it will have, it'll just be set up as a standard user, and you're going to click administrator, hit OK. I've already done that, so that's what you need to do. That's everything you need to do to set up this computer to access it from another computer. So let's just go ahead and go to another desktop so we can access this computer. So this is one of my gaming testing rigs, and so what you're going to want to do here though is you're going to use remote desktop. So you're going to type in remote desktop till it comes up, and now once you're here, if you want, you can attach it to the bar. I've already pinned mine to the bar, so that's why it's saying unpin from the taskbar. But at any rate, you can put it on the desktop, or you can just type it in every time you want to use it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Now, this is the reason why you want to name your computer. I've already opened this up, so it's come up with that computer. But if not, I could put in an IP address here and do it that way. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to put in the name of the computer, which is my Z420 server, and it's going to come up here, and I'm going to select that here. And then what's going to happen the first time you set this up, it's going to ask you the username, and then when you hit connect here, it's going to ask for your password that you set up. And then it's going to ask for this window here, and you just say yes. You can say you can click on here, don't ask for about this connection again. And now, since TechMateEasy is already logged into the server itself on the server, you're gonna want to say yes, I want to continue as TechMateEasy, and it's going to take a minute or two to log that user out of your desktop, or in this case my server. Okay, now we're on my server desktop. If I go ahead and minimize this, you're going to see that we're on my gaming system here. Now, one thing I do like about Microsoft's Remote Desktop, it does work very well with Microsoft. And in here, since I'm on this server, if I want, I can go into here, I can play a video from the server, and it'll play, and it's really a great tool. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is that you only have this capability if you're running Windows 10 Pro. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and maximize this. All you have to do to get out of this, you could just hit the X here to close, or if you've made a box here, you just hit your X just like normal, and it'll tell you that you're gonna disconnect from that desktop. Just hit OK, and you're closed. Okay, so now that's all there is to setting up a remote desktop for Windows. One thing I am going to show you, I'm back on my my server computer, and I just want to show you this program. It's called WH Monitor, and this is one reason why you might want to access a server that you may have. This is a great piece of software to check the resources of your computer, processors, how cool it's running, what the temperature of your hard drives are, your CPUs anyway. So so let's just I just wanted to mention this. I do have a video on 4 different free tools for PC users, and this is just one of them that I go over. But let's just talk about real quick. So what you do to access a computer if you don't have Windows 10 Pro. There's actually lots of different software out there that will allow you to do that. The one I'm going to talk about today, in fact, in this window right now, so I'm going to put this in a box here, and this is one of my gaming testing PCs, and I'm going to actually put this in a box, and now behind me what you're seeing is I'm actually accessing this computer here from my Linux desktop, and then from this computer here to the server I'm using remote desktop. Now I'm not saying to do that. I'm just showing you that it can be done, but I would not normally do this, but I just thought I would show you this. And the program that I use here, and it's well known on the Linux side. So this is my Linux desktop, and what I'm using here to do this is what is called NoMachine. And so I'm going to go through and show you how to install NoMachine. Let me pull up a dialog box here, which I'll be going over when I go to install it. But NoMachine allows you to access Windows, a Mac, Linux, or access Linux from a Windows machine, or a Mac from a Linux machine, and some others. And we'll go on the website. We'll cover that. So let's go to the website real quick. Let's download NoMachine, and let's install it on Windows. Okay, so now we're on a Windows machine, and what we're going to do in here is we're just going to type in NoMachine, and of course, because I've already typed in it, it's coming right up, and we'll go ahead and go to the website. Now, right now, it's recognizing that I am using Windows, but where it says here other operating systems, you just click on that, and you'll have access to these different operating systems. Let me go down here. So you've got Linux, you've got Raspberry Pi, obviously you've got Mac OS, you got Windows, and you got Android. So it's pretty broad as far as operating systems that you can run this on. Like I said, it's popular in the Linux community, and so let's just go ahead and download this. And I've already downloaded it, so instead of taking the time to just download that, let's just go ahead and let's go into my download directory, and let's go ahead and install that. Now when you go to install NoMachine, there are sections of the install that can take a little while because it's going to look at your system and look at the requirements. So if all of a sudden it seems like it's taking a while, just let it do its thing, and eventually it'll complete the install. Okay, so once you install NoMachine, you're going to have to restart your computer. So I'll go ahead and start that now, and we'll come back after it's restarted. Okay, so now that this machine's restarted, we'll just go over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to see in the right-hand corner here this M, and so you just click on that. You're going to go Show Main Window, and it's just going to show you a couple things here. And it goes out and finds your IP address, which you don't need your IP address with this. Now what it's going to do automatically, because I already have NoMachine installed on my Linux machine and these two other Windows machines, it's going to find those automatically. And so really all you have to do to go to those machines is just double click on that icon, and let's go to my Linux machine, and it'll show this display. And you can obviously turn this off after you've seen this display a couple of times, and it's just going to show you a couple things. And we're actually going to go into the audio section once we get this thing going. There's different resolution. Now, me personally, I like down here at the bottom here. This is a scaled window. For me, it works the best, or full screen. So I'm just going to keep that at scale to window. And it's actually showing you that right here, your different window options. So now what I'm doing here, it's kind of a little wild because I didn't close my other sessions of NoMachine with the other two Windows machines I have. So here I'm looking at my Linux desktop here, and I'm also seeing that I actually have Windows NoMachine running on this desktop, and I'm still logged in using remote desktop over here. I meant to close those, so let's just close those and get out of those. And like I said, normally I wouldn't go into a machine using NoMachine and then use remote desktop to access another Windows. I would just be using NoMachine. I just thought that was kind of fun to show. So now that I'm on my Linux desktop, I obviously can I use LibreOffice, so I can go to there if I want, open up any document I want. Do whatever I need to do while I'm on this desktop. So it's pretty easy to use, but I just want to go over here. So when you're ready to go out of this, you go up into the corner here, and you'll see how that folds over. That allows you to go into these settings here. And what I want to do is I want to go to the audio section, and in here you might have to change this to whatever video card you're using. And so I'm using an NVIDIA. And you may have to change these settings in here. So that's all I'm going to do here. Okay, there's just one more thing I want to show you in here real quick, and that is there's a show server status. So this status right here, it'll show some information right here, and it's basically showing your IP address, and then it shows you that the server is running. Now in Windows, this starts off automatically, but you can stop the server service if you want. What that does, all that does is if you stop the server status, then you won't be able to access the computer that you stopped the status on. You can still access other computers. So right now, if I went to stop the server, I could still access all the other NoMachine PCs that it's running on, but no one would just be able to access my desktop. So that's just something you can decide if you want to leave it on. It takes up resources. If you don't need it on, don't leave it on. For the demo purposes, I need this on because I may end up going to this desktop from Linux. So, but that's really, like I said, it's really pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and install it on Linux. So let's switch over to Linux. Okay, so now I'm on my Linux desktop here, and what I'm going to do here, if you're not familiar with Linux, Linux also has basically a software repository or app store like Android or like Apple. So I'm just going to go into the software manager. Now, you can also go to the terminal to do this, but I don't know how many people are watching this are familiar with the terminal, but you don't have to go to the terminal. And for the Linux geeks out there, you know, I'm really not much of a terminal person. I use Linux as my daily driver now, but I still don't go to the terminal that much. There's only a few things you really need to go to the terminal for, depending on what you're doing. So here's NoMachine here. All you have to do is just click on it, and now it says remove because I've already installed it here. But basically, it would have an install icon here, and it installs just like it did on Windows. The only difference is you don't have to restart Linux to start using NoMachine. But one thing that you do have to do is you do have to start the server. Let's go to server status. So under here, under server status, the server will not be running. You'll actually need to start the server status. That's the only thing that you need to do is just start the server status if you want someone to access or you want to access this Linux desktop. So other than that, everything works the same way. It's the same dialog box on all the platforms. And if I go here to show main window, so here's that server machine I was talking about. This is another Windows machine. This is my Z440. This is a Z420, the ones that we're kind of going back and forth on. So what I'm going to do right now is actually this computer here that I call the Z440. This is actually my personal Windows machine that I use. It's actually going to log directly into it, but this is where I do all my video editing. And I actually do so I got these computers that are both, I got a Linux box and a Windows box next to each other. And sometimes I will use NoMachine. Like, let's say I'm on my Windows machine and there's something I need on my Linux machine, and I'll go log into it, grab it real quick. Most of the stuff that I do in my office, though, I really save most things to the server, so I really have access to most of the stuff that I work with on the server, but some things I do not. And sometimes I use both machines to rip DVDs and Blu-rays, so I might be ripping them on both of machines. So if I'm doing that, then I'll just open up NoMachine and access it that way. And again, you know, we can play. Sorry, that was a little loud. But again, like I said, I can access any file here. I can access LibreOffice. A long time ago, I went ahead and moved from Microsoft Office to LibreOffice because it was free, and I knew eventually I was going to go to Linux. And so I wanted to just kind of get away from as many Microsoft products as I could, and so that's why I have LibreOffice on both of them. But that's really all it is. It's really pretty simple to use NoMachine. The only thing that I would suggest really quick is that you keep, if you have an update on a Windows machine, see if there's an update on a Linux machine. That just tends to work more seamlessly if both machines have the latest update. But other than that, that's all I would recommend on that if you use NoMachine. And I do want to say again, there are other remote desktops. NoMachine is by no means the only remote desktop out there. It's just one that I chose to pick and use for myself. So a lot of people use these to access VMs on a VM server. So as you can see, it was very easy to set up remote desktop, whether we were using the remote desktop in Windows 10 or a NoMachine remote desktop. Now, again, there's lots of reasons why people use remote desktop. You know, one of the biggest reasons is really to access servers, especially in the IT departments. You know, they might be at their desk, but there's a server room, you know, maybe a floor down, so they'll access their servers from a remote desktop or NoMachine or a different one. So me myself, I used to have a Microsoft server in our basement where our switch was, and so that's how I would access it. Is I would access it through remote desktop. But also too, you know, as I used as an example before, maybe you have a laptop and you have a desktop computer at your house. Me personally, I also mentioned that I have a Linux box and a Windows box. Well, actually behind me and in this room here, because I test so many systems, I actually have a 4-way switch that I can switch from computer to computer and I only have one monitor. Even though I have that, and I have that switch because of some of all the testing that I do of different systems. But even though I have that switch, my Windows and my Linux machine. So to be honest, mostly what I use my Windows machine for is video editing. I just couldn't use the ones that are available on Linux. I'd used that video editing software, Vegas Pro, for years before I even started creating YouTube content, and I just couldn't make the switch to something else. And that's one of the big reasons why I have a Windows machine. Besides, also I do game testing on that one as well. But what I really use NoMachine for to access that machine is because I do rip a lot of Blu-ray discs or DVDs, and what it does, sometimes I'm ripping maybe 4 at a time. And so what I'll do is I'll use my Windows machine to rip a Blu-ray player at the same time, excuse me, at the same time using my Linux machine. So when I'm on my Linux machine and I want to rip a Blu-ray player, I'll put up NoMachine and I go ahead and access my ripping software through NoMachine on my Windows machine, and that way I don't have to use my switch. It's actually a little bit more convenient to do it through the remote desktop, because then it's just a click of an icon and pop up comes my Windows machine. And so there's lots of reasons why people would want to use remote desktop. I mean, that might seem like a silly one to you, but it's very convenient when I'm trying to rip multiple Blu-rays at the same time, where I can use both machines to do that. So, and the other thing is too, I've mentioned that I do rip Blu-rays. So I do have a Plex server. I'm going to have a series on Plex coming up. And one of the things I'm really going to do is there's a couple of things in Plex that can really make your Plex server a lot more efficient. So I'm going to have that series coming up soon. So be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you coming to the channel. Hope it was helpful. Have a great day. This is TG with Tech Made Easy. Thanks.
Now that was easy peasy.